Let me ask you something. Have you ever poured your soul into someone, given your time, your heart, your energy, only to be left wondering, will he ever come back? Listen to me before he comes running back. Something happens, not to him, to you, because this isn't just about him. It's about the power you step into before he even realizes what he lost. When you stop obsessing over the outcome, you shift the energy. You go from desperate to desirable. You stop begging and start becoming. That's the essence of detachment, and it's not about pretending you don't care. It's about finally understanding your vow. You doesn't live in someone else's hands. When you're emotionally hooked, constantly checking your phone, replaying the last conversation, or overanalyzing every move he makes, you're not in control. Your peace is being outsourced to his behavior. And here's the truth. No one is attracted to that kind of energy. Clinginess isn't love, it's fear, it's scarcity, and people can feel it. Detachment flips the script. It says, I want love, but I don't need you to give it to me in order to feel whole. That shift, subtle but size, alters everything, because suddenly you're no longer acting from a place of trying to hold on. You're not making choices out of fear of losing him. You're making decisions from a grounded place of knowing what you deserve. That energy is irresistible, not because you're playing games or manipulating, because you've finally remembered who you are without the noise of his absence. People always notice when you stop chasing. It's not about silence or disappearing to trigger a response. It's about truly letting go of the outcome. When your happiness no longer depends on whether or not he calls, texts, or shows up, something powerful happens. You stop shrinking, you start expanding, you reclaim your time, your focus, your self-respect. You stop looking at his social media and start looking in the mirror, because now your reflection is what matters most. In that space, you begin to make better choices. You don't settle. You stop making excuses for behavior that doesn't align with your worth. The moment you detach, you're able to see clearly the relationship wasn't giving you what you thought it was. Maybe you are holding on to potential, not reality. Maybe you confused chemistry with compatibility, but in detachment, clarity arrives. You're no longer clouded by fantasy. You're rooted in truth, and that truth is magnetic. You show up differently when you're not grasping. Your body language changes, your voice is calmer, your energy is steady. It's not that you're colder, it's that you're clearer, and clarity is captivating. People are drawn to those who know who they are, who are aligned, who aren't constantly trying to prove something. You become the one who got away not because you played hard to get, but because you became someone who could no longer be held by someone who wasn't ready. That's the power of detachment, not because you stop caring, but because you start choosing yourself. And when that happens, everything else starts to move in your direction, including the people who once took your presence for granted. When you stop trying to prove your value and start living it, everything changes. Most people go through relationships trying to convince someone that they're worth staying for. They overextend, they sacrifice. They tolerate, they shift just to be seen, loved, or chosen. But the truth is, value is never proven through desperation. It's embodied. You don't have to argue for your worth when you live like someone who knows they're enough. You don't have to beg someone to stay when you've created a life so full, so grounded, that anyone who walks away simply reveals they were never qualified to be there in the first place. Self-worth isn't loud. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't come from a certain look, a relationship status, or the number of unread texts on your phone. It comes from within, quiet, steady, undeniable. When you know your worth, you stop settling for crumbs. You stop chasing after people who leave you confused. You stop tolerating inconsistency, hot-hand, cold games, and bare minimum effort. You start honoring your time, your peace, and your emotional energy like it's gold, because it is. When you step into this version of yourself, the whole game shifts. You stop asking, why hasn't he called? And start asking, why would I wait for someone who isn't showing up? You stop wondering, what's wrong with me? And start affirming, there's nothing wrong with me. I've just been giving my energy to the wrong people. And from that space of deep self-worth, you begin to attract differently. Not just people, but experiences, opportunities, and a deeper sense of self. And here's the twist. The moment you embody your worth, that's when they notice, because people can feel when your energy changes. They can sense when they no longer have emotional power over you. That's when curiosity sets in. That's when silence becomes loud. That's when he starts wondering what changed and why the version of you who used to be available at the drop of a text is no longer responding the same way. But you didn't disappear. You didn't play games, you evolved. Living your worth isn't about proving anything to him. It's about becoming someone who no longer questions what she deserves. You walk differently, you speak differently. You love differently. You start setting boundaries not out of anger, but out of respect. You stop arguing to be understood and start choosing peace over proving a point. You protect your energy because you finally understand how valuable it is. That's when they come back, not to save you, but to chase the light they once dimmed. But by the time they do, you're not waiting anymore. You've already moved into a life where you don't have to shrink to be loved. Because once you've lived in the fullness of your worth, there's no going back. You no longer need closure, you create clarity. That's a shift most people never make, because we're taught to wait for explanations, apologies, or some final conversation that ties it all up in a neat bow. But real growth happens when you realize closure isn't something they give you, it's something you give yourself. When you stop waiting for them to explain why they hurt you, why they changed, why they left, and you start asking, what was I really looking for in them that I can now give to myself? That's when you break the cycle. Waiting for closure keeps you stuck. It ties your healing to their willingness to be honest, present, and emotionally responsible. 3 things they already failed to offer. So why would you trust them to suddenly show up now and deliver the peace you've been craving? That peace doesn't come from a conversation. It comes from a decision to stop needing someone else to validate your pain or make it make sense. You don't need them to admit what they did. You already know how it felt. Clarity is power. Clarity says, I may never get the answer I wanted, but I've seen enough. It says, even without the apology, I know what I deserved, and this wasn't it. That's when you begin to free yourself, not just from the relationship, but from the mental loop that replays the past like a broken record. That loop that wonders, was it my fault? Did I push him away? If I had said this instead of that, would he have stayed? Clarity cuts through all of that and says, stop. You did your best with what you knew. And now you're learning better. When you step into clarity, you stop romanticizing the moments that broke you. You stop clinging to the good times as proof that what you had was real. You start seeing the full picture, not just the highlights. You see how much of yourself you had to lose to hold onto something that wasn't aligned, and you realize the closure you thought you needed was really just the hope that they would finally value you the way you deserved. But now you know your value isn't up for negotiation. Creating clarity means you take back the pen, you write your own ending. Not the one where you're waiting for a message that never comes or chasing answers that never satisfy. You close the chapter not because it's complete, but because you are, and from there you begin again, not from a place of brokenness, but from a deeper connection to yourself, because once you choose clarity over closure, you don't just heal, you rise, you take radical ownership of your life. That's the moment everything begins to shift. It's not about blaming yourself for what happened. It's about taking your power back from the person you gave it to. When a relationship falls apart, instinct is to point fingers to say, he did this, he changed, he hurt me, and maybe all of that is true, but staying in that narrative keeps you small. It keeps you trapped in a version of yourself that has no agency, no control, no forward motion. Ownership isn't about guilt, it's about growth. It says, I didn't cause all of this, but I can choose what happens next. You start asking different questions. Instead of, why did he treat me that way? You ask, why did I allow it to continue? Instead of, why didn't he choose me? You ask, why did I put someone on a pedestal who couldn't even meet me at eye level? These aren't easy questions, but they're powerful because they move you from victimhood into responsibility, and responsibility is the birthplace of transformation. It means you no longer outsource your healing, your happiness, or your future to someone who already walked away. Radical ownership demands honesty. You stop sugarcoating red flags. You stop calling chaos passion. You stop pretending that mixed signals are anything other than confusion. You face the part of you that was willing to settle, and you meet it with compassion, not shame, because ownership doesn't mean you beat yourself up. It means you get real. You say, this version of me tolerated that. But I'm not her anymore. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's wisdom, that's evolution, and here's what's wild. When you take ownership, people feel it. Your energy no longer leaks. You stop texting first just to keep the connection alive. You stop checking who viewed your stories. Stop performing, you start living. People can feel when someone has done the inner work. There's a calmness, a grounded confidence, an energy that says, I'm good, with or without you. That's what becomes magnetic, not the desperate need to be chosen, but the unshakable decision to choose yourself. Every single time, when you live from that place, your standards change, your language changes. You no longer say things like, I just need closure, or maybe he'll come around. You say, if it costs my peace, it's too expensive. You say, I'll wait for alignment, not attention. That's radical. Ownership, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, but it's also liberating, because once you realize you have the power to rewrite the story, not to change the past, but to choose how it shapes you, you become unstoppable. You stop waiting for life to happen. You start creating it, and maybe, just maybe, when he finally realizes what he lost and tries to come back, he'll find a version of you that no longer fits the mold he once held, because you're not who you were when he left. You took the pain, the silence, the confusion, and you used it to rise. That's what ownership does. It builds a new version of you, one he may no longer be worthy of. Your focus turns inward, not outward. That's when the real shift happens. After a breakup or a painful disconnection, it's easy to stay obsessed with what they're doing, who they're with, what they're posting. Are they missing you? Are they regretting it? But all of that is a trap, a loop, a distraction, because as long as your attention is tied to them, you're not healing. You're just hoping, and hope without action keeps you stuck in the same emotional place you swore you'd grow out of. When you finally get tired of guessing, tired of the waiting, tired of giving someone else center stage in your mind, you do something powerful. You turn your focus inward. You stop asking, what are they doing? And start asking, what am I still avoiding in myself? Because it's not just about them. It never was. Your obsession with their behavior is often a mask for the discomfort of facing your own wounds, your own patterns, your own neglected self-worth. And here's the truth. When you redirect your focus, everything starts to change. You begin to notice how much of your energy was spent trying to be chosen, trying to fix, trying to hold together something that wasn't meant for you. Now that energy goes into rebuilding. You get back into your body, you move, you meditate, you journal, you sit with the hard emotions instead of texting through them. You remember that the most important relationship isn't with him, it's with you. That's not just some cliché self-love mantra, that's a fact, because when you're rooted in yourself, you stop reacting to every trigger, you stop letting their silence dictate your self-worth, you start living from a place of intention instead of emotional reactivity. You create rituals instead of habits. You make decisions based on your vision, not your voids. The irony is, when your focus is no longer external, when you're no longer sending energy towards someone who isn't sending it back, they feel it. People always feel when the emotional umbilical cord is cut. When your energy was wrapped up in them, they had a pull on you even if they didn't acknowledge it. But once that cord is gone, once you've gone inward, chosen yourself, filled the space they left behind with your own purpose and power, that's when their curiosity kicks in. That's when they start noticing. That's when they come back around, not because you chased, but because you didn't. But here's what matters more than whether they come back. You won't need them to, because by that point you've built something better. You've built a version of yourself so complete, so grounded, so magnetic. Not because you proved anything to anyone, but because you stopped looking outside and started coming home to yourself. He feels the shift without a word. That's the part no one tells you. You don't have to send a long message. You don't have to post a perfectly curated quote that accidentally lands on his feed. You don't have to prove anything, because energy, real energy, doesn't lie. The moment your heart detaches, the moment your peace outweighs your obsession, he feels it. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about actually no longer being emotionally available to someone who didn't show up for you when it mattered. That energetic shift is invisible but undeniable. He may not be consciously aware of it. He might not even know why he's suddenly thinking about you when he hears a song or passes your favorite coffee shop, but something hits different. The version of you that once waited by the phone, she's not there anymore. The one who replied in minutes, who made excuses for him, who adjusted herself to fit his inconsistency. She's been replaced by a woman who found her center, and that absence creates a presence. When your focus turns inward, when you choose yourself fully, when your daily life becomes full without needing his attention to validate your worth, he notices, because the dynamic has changed. What used to feed his ego now feeds your soul. You're no longer energetically chasing him. You've stopped pouring into a place that never poured back. That withdrawal of attention, of emotional investment, of expectation, it echoes louder than any confrontation ever could. It's not about being cold. It's not about bitterness. It's about emotional maturity. It's about understanding that your energy is your currency, and you've stopped spending it on anything that doesn't pay you back in peace. He may not know what changed exactly, but he'll feel it in the silence, in the lack of access, in the way your presence has become a memory instead of a given. That's when the messages start, the casual check-ins, the hey, just thinking about you, not because he suddenly became emotionally evolved, but because your absence created space for reflection, and your growth made him realize what he lost. But by the time he comes back around, you're different. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not angry. You're aligned. You may not even be interested anymore, because the version of you that longed for him doesn't exist. She evolved into someone who stopped needing to be chosen, and started choosing. That's the paradox. The moment you stop needing them to feel your pain, recognize your worth, that's when they start to feel it all, without a single word, because nothing speaks louder than energy that's been reclaimed. Nothing shakes a man more than the realization that the person who once made him feel important no longer revolves around him. He'll feel the shift. But the question is, will it even matter to you by then? You see, what most people don't understand is that the turning point isn't when he finally calls or comes back. It's when you stop waiting. It's when you stop living in response to someone else's absence and start building your life in alignment with your presence. That shift is subtle, but it's seismic. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't show up in your Instagram feed, but it changes the entire energy field you walk in, because real healing isn't loud. It's quiet, consistent, and internal. It's the moment you go from chasing closure to creating clarity, from asking, will he come back, to declaring, whether he does or not, I'm whole. All the power you thought he had, it was yours the whole time. You just forgot. You gave it away in pieces every time you waited on a reply, softened your boundaries to keep the peace, or stayed silent to avoid rocking the boat. But that ends now, because your growth isn't measured by how much pain you can hold. It's measured by how much truth you can face. And the truth is, when you take your focus off of fixing someone else and start repairing the parts of yourself that accepted less than you deserved, everything begins to change. You stop surviving heartbreak and start rising from it. This is your moment to take radical ownership, not of what happened to you, but of what you choose to do with it. You can blame or you can build. You can wait or you can walk. You can keep checking if they've noticed you're gone, or you can become so grounded in your own power that you stop needing them to notice at all. That's what creates the comeback. Not their return, but your rise. Not when they see your value, but when you finally do. The kind of love you were trying to get from them. It starts with how you speak to yourself, how you hold yourself, how you protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And yes, when you shift like that, when you start moving differently, loving yourself differently, speaking with a new kind of certainty, he will feel it. Whether he texts or shows up at your door or never says a word, he will feel it. But by then, it won't matter in the way it used to, because now you're not sitting around wondering if you're enough. You know you are. You're not just healed. You're upgraded. You're not just waiting for love. You are love. And that kind of transformation is irreversible. So if you take anything from this, let it be this. The moment before he comes running back is never about him. It's about you. It's about the internal shift that happens when you stop chasing and start choosing, when you stop proving and start becoming, when you let go of what hurt you and rise into what heals you. And from that place, you don't need to hope he comes back, because the most important person finally did. You came back to yourself, and that's who you were waiting for all along. Thank you for being here today, for showing up, not just for this moment, but for yourself. Thank you for having the courage to listen, to reflect, and to begin the process of choosing your worth over your wounds. This isn't easy work. Growth never is, but the fact that you stayed with me through every word, every truth, every hard mirror we held up together, that means something. That means Ready? And that means you're already rising, wherever you are on your journey, whether you're still hurting, healing, or already walking in your power. Please remember this, you are not alone, and you are not broken, you're becoming, and becoming takes time, patience, and love, the kind of love you give yourself when no one else is watching, so be proud of where you are right now. This isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of a new chapter, one that starts with you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your presence, for your openness, for being brave enough to explore your own power. If even one thing I said today gave you clarity, helped you shift your perspective, or reminded you of your worth, then this moment was more than worth it. Take this energy with you, let it live in the way you speak, walk, and love going forward. Carry your strength like a quiet fire, and never forget the person you've been waiting for has always been you. Goodbye for now, and take care of that incredible heart of yours. You've got this.